My name is Steve Jorgensen, and I'm a professional geologist and a professional engineer. I hold licenses in both, and the firm I work for is Alfred Benish and Company. The biggest brownfield project I worked on was in Omaha, Nebraska. It started in the year 2000, and it was finally completed in 2006. Literally on the day of 9/11, we were excavating a 6,800-gallon tanker car that had been buried and used for gasoline storage, but it was undocumented. So on that day, literally, we were digging this thing up. And what was weird about that day is Epley Airfield is about a mile away, and normally it's really noisy, and you could have heard crickets that day. Until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when this big gold and blue jet flew over, because Bush had flown to Offutt for the day, and he was headed back to Washington. But about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he flew over. So I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that day. So, well, I literally, the first time I stepped on that property was in June of 2000, and there was a wetland that they had found on the Union Pacific Railroad yard. So Andy Miller and I, who worked together at that time, went down there and delineated this tiny little wetland. And then it just went from there, and it involved a 110-acre Union Pacific Railroad yard that was cleaned up, and now the Omaha Convention Center and Arena sits on that site. And in the last couple of years, they built a new baseball stadium. Omaha's big on the College World Series, so they put a new baseball stadium there. And across the street from there was another 70-acre site that I got to do. I was in charge of determining where to collect environmental samples, both soil and groundwater, on that 70-acre site. And it had a metal salvage yard and a construction demolition debris landfill and an ag chemical storage facility and a fire training center and a former fire incinerator on the property. So we had lots of stuff to deal with on that property. But at that time, before this project started in 2000, the drive from downtown Omaha to the airport was past all of this really ugly property that had all this commercial stuff going on. And now on that property, the world headquarters for the Gallup Corporation sits right on the edge of the Missouri River. A very beautiful location now. There's a National Park Service headquarters there that deals with, administers 13 states east of Omaha, kind of the northeast United States. That now sits on that property. There's two 14-story condominium buildings on that property, and there's a pedestrian bridge that goes across the Missouri River from Nebraska to Iowa on that location. So my idea of a brownfield project is somebody wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, I have an idea. Who can I talk to? What can I do? Where do I go? And from there, you start talking to other people and saying, hey, I've got this idea, how can we do this? And then you get into the issues of, well, who's going to finance it? Are there environmental problems? Whatever. You deal with all these people together to put this package together. One of the projects they talked about this morning was here in the Denver metro area, down in the city of Sheridan, down in River Point, where they did a huge brownfield redevelopment on an old landfill. That was very, very similar to what I dealt with on Omaha Riverfront redevelopment project. Everybody knows that the site will never be pristine, and that's not the point. A brownfield site is not going to be pristine. But you've taken a property that was undervalued or underutilized or not utilized, and you've put it back to a beneficial use. And that is the whole point of a brownfield. You put it back on the tax record, and that's very important for the city and the county and the state to get that tax revenue. There's so many potential opportunities for new jobs to occur on that property that were not there before. So a catalyst site is so important, and Denver's going to be able to do that, and they have done that, and there will be more. It just takes somebody with the foresight to sit down and say, hey, I have an idea. And that's really where it all starts with the brownfield stuff.